No fireworks this year at Navy Pier up in Chicago, but maybe the Cardinals can finally provide some with their lacking offense. This is Card Central 365. A happy 4th of July to everyone out there watching. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside Ryan Fagan. We meet again after a few weeks of, I think, about a month of being apart from each other with our Friday schedules.
One Friday I spent hiking in the Linville Gorge in North Carolina, and the next one I spent on the beach in North Carolina. So yeah, back in St. Louis, back ready to talk some baseball, although there hasn't been a whole lot of good stuff here lately happening.
So let me start off. Because as we'll preview this Cubs series as the show goes on. But let me just ask, as somebody that's been watching this team for the last few weeks and has seen what has gone down the last 5 NL Central games with this Cardinal squad, is there a level of concern right now, or just more frustration with how Jekyll and Hyde this team is?
I think look, if we're being honest, that's kind of who they are, right? They're a team that when they're playing well, when they're hitting, when the top of the lineup is producing, and Herrera and Contreras are driving in runs, they can beat anyone, right? We saw when the Dodgers came to St. Louis last month, and they played really well, took 2 out of 3. The problem is there's just not that consistency. There's not the depth. If a couple of guys sit out, then the lineup suffers. And when you're trying to figure out the equation to this team becoming a consistent playoff contender, I'm not sure that consistency is the number one strength that they have. And you see that when a couple of guys go south, when Lars Nootbaar is not the guy at the top of the order that he was the first couple of weeks, the first month of the season, and trying to rearrange things, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think that's just kind of who they are. That's not something that I think fans want to hear, but that's the reality of kind of what they are at this point of the season.
Yeah, and as it seems like more and more as we see the struggles. We've talked about him a lot this year. It's Ivan Herrera. Everything kind of it flows through him, and I don't know the last time we got an update on him. I don't, and that's something that we get. We're just sitting here kind of waiting for him to get back in that lineup and see what it looks like from there with what we have seen at least this past 2 weeks to a month with some of the other contributors.
Yeah, he's been so good when he's been healthy. We saw the power early on, the lot of home runs he hit, but it's not just that, right? He's only had, look at his numbers now, 150 at bats this season, but he's hitting 320. His OPS plus is 157, which is far above anyone else. Brendan Donovan's second at 120. That's a pretty big gap. 37 percentage points better than Brendan Donovan, and Donovan's your second best hitter in terms of OPS plus. And again, they need him. They need that consistent source, because you build him in the middle of the lineup, and everyone else kind of finds their rules around him. And when he's out, it's not the same group. It's not the same team that is going to scare anyone, and we've seen that especially over the last couple of games.
The Cardinals will send Miles Mikolas to the mound today for the first of 3 in Chicago. We'll have those lineups for you coming up in just a bit. Card Central 365, powered by Gray Bar, and all content here on STL Sports Central is brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours. The Cardinals right now, again, 3 straight shutouts against the Pirates, but they are entering today's game tied for a playoff spot. And this is kind of what Brendan and I did the post-game show on Wednesday after the 3rd shutouts of the Pirates. And it really seemed like an all-out just therapy session with the with the fans. I have never seen a more angry, frustrated chat than what we saw in that post-game show the other day, from just fire everybody to, sell the team, sell at the trade deadline. And when it comes down to it, this is, again, a team that is in a playoff position right now. Yeah. And I have said it many times. I said it on Wednesday. I'll say it again today, that I get the anger from the fans after getting shut out for 27 innings by the Pirates, and the frustration with this team. But again, if you would have said that on July 4th, this would be a playoff team, a playoff contending team, you would have every fan out there would have accepted that. And if
I've
you
been thrilled.
Yeah, if tickets were to go on sale tomorrow for a potential playoff games, they would be sold out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it is hard sometimes to find that perspective, right? And I think especially when you talk about, would fans have been happy with the Cardinals being in a playoff spot at this point of the year on July 4th, especially when you look at some of the numbers. I mean, Arenado, you look at that OPS plus, not to harp on that stat, but it's a pretty good stat. 100 is league average. Anything above that and below it is percentage points better. And there's a lot of sub hundreds in that lineup on an everyday basis. Arenado's at 95. Victor Scott, for what he has provided, he's been a good point of the season, but he's at 86. Jordan Walker's at 58. Mason Wynn's at 98 after a slow start. And you basically have Nootbaar at 100, exactly average. And then you've got Contreras at 112, Donovan at 120, and Herrera at 157, and Burleson too at 119. That's not the lineup of a team that is in first place, right? That is the lineup of a team that is going to have hits and misses. It's funny because I'll have friends text me, and it's just funny to I really need to just go ahead and put them all in like a line, chronological order, because you had the end of that Cubs series, right? If they took the first couple games and they had a chance to really make an impact, and then nothing. So then they go into Cleveland and play like they're a team that is going to sweep into the LCS, and then after that, you come back and you have the Pirates series, and all of a sudden you're like, are they ever going to score? Or is anything ever going to happen to them again? And it's been interesting to see, and that's why that's one of the reasons I love baseball, right? It's not the NFL, it's not the 16, 17 game schedule. It is 162 games. You're going to have ups and downs, and part of the fun is breaking it down, the goods and the bads over the 6-month season. And at the moment, it's a bit of a bad stretch. But yeah, they are overall, I think it's not just safe to say, but it's obvious that this has been a better season so far than I think anyone could have reasonably expected. And the question is what do they do going forward to either amplify what they're going to be over the next couple of years, or try to get what they want to be over the next couple of months? And I think that's going to be a question, and we'll maybe see how that shapes up over the next 2 or 3 weeks heading into the trade deadline.
And the people like Adam right here in the comments saying that he's worried that we're watching the end of the season right here. Sorry, I can't be more optimistic. I'd like to know, Adam, what were your thoughts Sunday evening about this card? Like after the Cardinals went and dominated the Guardians for 3 games in Cleveland, what were your thoughts of the series then when they were 9 games over 500 for the first time this season? What were they then? If we're going in just 3 game spans, ups and downs, brother, I'm going to tell you right now, like you're in for, you're really in for it if you're going to keep this up till September. And
it's fun, isn't it?
So that's the thing. Here you go. You answer right away. Guardians' worst team for 30 games before that. So that's, again, looking at this series, and again, we'll get to the lineups here in a second. The Cardinals do need to take at least one from the first 2 games. I think that's what they're saying here. I would say this: the Cardinals need to score in the first inning today. That's what I'm looking for today. Is I need the Cardinals to I need Brendan Donovan going up there like he did against the Guardians, first pitch swinging, trying to put one into the bleachers.
I think the longer today goes, if they do not score early, the more you start to think about it, because you've had, obviously it's not just what have they not scored in like 2 weeks now? Or does it just feel like that, right? And then They had the off day yesterday, so you had to think about it again. So, it's been 5 days since they've scored a run. And then all of a sudden, if you start going 5 days in an inning, 5 days in 2 innings, 5 days in 3 innings, it starts to kind of get in there. And I think, I think that, when we look at like kind of what Adam is saying, he's I can't be more optimistic, but then he follows it up with I do right every day. That's the good thing about Cardinals fans. And I think that's what we've seen some kind of missing from this year is the apathy that has kind of been apparent in the attendance and in the way that we've seen empty seats in the ballpark, and the fact that people like Adam are still, even though they're frustrated, still riding and dying every day. I mean, that's what you want. You want to that's what the Cardinals want. They want to have the fans who care if they're losing. And I think that's what they've seen slipping away a little bit this year. But, as they have these ups and downs, they have the series like Cleveland. If they can finish strong in these games against the Cubs and Nationals and Braves going into the All-Star break, I think you can build that back up, and you can kind of get the people that were apathetic early in the year after an offseason of nothing and kind of slowly bring them back. Because if you get to the All-Star game, right, and you're still in position to make and still in playoff position, and you can go into the trade deadline kind of optimistic. Like, look, they're not going to sell the farm to bring in a giant bat. It's just not going to happen.
Right.
But as long as they're making moves, and that could even be, and Joe, we talked about this all year, it could be trading Fetty, putting McGrevy into the spot and trying to bring something in, kind of doing what the Rays have done a lot of the last couple of years, is trading some, bringing some in, and still maintaining that competitiveness. If they can get to the All-Star break and you can have 3 off days of good vibes for the fan base, I think that'd be big.
I'm almost wondering too, if you're at a point where you're getting a little closer to just releasing Fetty. I think that is a more more of a possibility with every start, because I think if you look at the financials of it, it's not the 8 million that he was due anymore. You're looking more towards, I think, around 2 million maybe at this point. So I think that we are kind of looking at a case of, okay, yeah, maybe it's just time to be done with it for forever. And just, we're not going to look to trade anybody. We're just going to say, all right, we're done.
Maybe. I don't think they're near that point. I don't think that point would come before the All-Star. Before the trade deadline. So that wouldn't be a scenario that happens until August. And I think that gives him a chance to kind of revitalize himself. Now, that said, the idea of trading Fetty in the offseason, they would have gotten a much bigger return in the offseason than they would if they deal him now. At this point, you would be trading him to open up a spot and to maybe get a low-level prospect who could help at some point as a backup infielder or backup outfielder. You're no longer going to get – you were never going to get anything super premium for Eric Fetty, but you're not going to get anything even close to premium potential MLB starter down the road. But at some point, I think that's something that they need to bring back, anything to make some sort of moves. Like what they cannot do, I think, if you're looking at what the fan base wants, is what they cannot do is what they did this offseason, which is nothing, right? They need to do something. And whether it's signaling some sort of change towards, we're looking towards the next couple of years, we're looking towards 2026, if things go south the next couple of weeks, or if they're going to do something little to amplify what they could potentially do this year, which is going to get a bullpen piece, trade a low-level prospect for a bullpen piece who could help over the next couple of months. Something, right? The reaction to the offseason of nothing was apathy, and we saw that in the first several months of attendance. They cannot make that same mistake over the next couple of weeks leading into the trade deadline if they want to keep the fan base engaged. They can't do that. And so that's why I'm fascinated to see what lessons did the front office learn from an offseason of essentially apathy. They didn't do anything, and the fan base responded with apathy in terms of attendance. What did they learn from that going into the trade deadline, and how are they going to do something to keep that fan base engaged and talking and riding every up and down every day like Adam is?
Lineups here in just a second, but want to remind you that Card Central 365, powered by Gray Bar. If you're suffering from supply chain issues and they're disrupting your operations, have no fear. Gray Bar has you covered, and you can rely on their nationwide logistics network to get what you need, where they need, when they need to get there, all within budget. Visit graybar.com to start an order today. That's graybar.com to fix those supply chain issues with Gray Bar, your distributor for electrical and data needs. Here is your lineup for the game today. And just right off the bat, the first thing when I saw this, when I got the graphic, the very first thing that I looked at was for the last names of Contreras and Arenado. And that gave me instant hope. that made me feel so much better to see those names in the lineup today. After not having them in there on Wednesday, they had the off day yesterday. So you see them back in there. And I think more importantly, too, you see both of them play in the field. I think that's another big thing, too, because we saw Arenado DH the other day instead of playing third because he was still suffering from, just a few injuries. But Donovan leading off playing second, Wynn at short, Burleson and right, Contreras at first, Nootbaar in left, Arenado at third, Gorman DHing, Pages behind the plate. Today, Victor Scott II is in center field with Miles Michaelis on the mound for the Cardinals. A few comments coming in here about the construction of the lineup, and I'll keep this lineup up on the screen for a while for people that are jumping in, jumping out of the as they watch today. This lineup right here is this is a good lineup against the righty. This is fine. I do question though, with Gorman seemingly hitting the ball better in June, 6 home runs, tied for the team lead in June with 6 home runs. At what point, does Nootbaar get dropped even lower? Because Nootbaar had that nice stretch. He had that nice series against the Cubs, hit a few home runs, leads the team in home runs. But again, there's just more and more that Lars Nootbaar does. And Ryan, this will go back to the conversations you and I had in spring training, where we were talking about how high we were, more so I was, on Lars Nootbaar, to where he just seemingly more and more becomes a platoon guy if he's not hitting the way the Cardinals need him to hit.
Yeah, that is the first thing I thought when I looked at this lineup too. Flopping Gorman and Nootbaar, because you want to keep that right left. I get that.
Yeah.
But putting that little bit of power, more power that Gorman has, and as you said, he's been better lately. He's showing the type of hitter that they want him to be. Part of me wonders though if keeping Gorman in that spot, in that 7 spot, is maybe just to kind of keep the Cardinals saying, hey, we love what you're doing, right? Keep doing it. We'll worry about moving you up higher later. And I wonder how much of that is keeping Nootbaar in that spot between Contreras and Arenado and keeping Gorman down there. I wonder if that's just kind of like keeping that, just telling Gorman, like, hey, you keep doing what you're doing. We'll keep putting you in there where we've been putting you in there. And maybe later we're going to go there. But I wonder if they're just kind of cautious about moving him up into a higher, more visible spot early, relatively early into him hitting better, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and maybe it is a case of hoping that, it's more fastballs down there. Or even if, Gorman's going to sit on the fastball, maybe it's a case of, hey, let's make them throw the off-speed junk to the number 7 hitter in the lineup and work those pitchers a little more. I saw somebody in the comments earlier saying the Cardinals do need to work pitchers, especially with the Cubs. This year, the bullpen's been a little better than it has been in years past. It seems like the Cubs have their back end of the bullpen figured out, but you get Colin Ray out of there after 4 or 5 innings, and you get into some of those other guys in the on the team. Genesis Cabrera, by the way, on the Cubs.
Yeah,
that's when I did see that, I was like, "Has this been a whole year thing? Is this just a recent deal?" That was that's a blast from the past with the Cardinals there. But it's this is, as somebody else commented, this is the best Cardinal lineup they have right now. This is with
Herrera out. Yes. Yeah.
With Walker and Herrera out, this is the best that you can go with right now.
You could, if you're talking just strictly offensive, you can put Pozo in there for Pages, but 6 of one, half dozen the other,
Pretty much. I would, I'd agree with that. And somebody else said too, this is, this team that's going to go with Donovan right now. It starts and stops with Brendan Donovan, who I'd have to look at his splits in June. But
I was just looking at that before we started. Before we came on, he's on base percentage. Everything was down in June. June was his worst month. 213 batting average, .311 on base percentage, .625 OPS. It was not his best month. I mean, he was looking like he was going to be a definite all-star, and June kind of put a damper on that. And I think
he still is. I mean,
yeah,
he still is. I mean, he is the top guy for this team that'll be an all-star.
I'd have to look at how I haven't looked at the second baseman and where he fits into that. But yeah, I mean, he's been aside from Herrera. I mean, I guess because he's played more, he's been their most consistent guy because he's been in there. But yeah,
I would say Donovan and Gray right now are the two that I would go with.
Yeah, I mean, Sonny's been. I know we've talked about Sonny Gray a lot this year, you and I, and where he would be. And I know I've said I don't care what his last start was. He's still the guy. If you get to a playoff game, he's starting game one for me. And as long as he's healthy, he's been that. And we've seen a lot of lately of why he's there. Especially that start in Texas. Yeah, I think if you're looking for who's going to be the Cardinals representative, it's going to be a situation where there's not going to be multiples. I mean, maybe two, but not a lot of them, because Maton could make a case. He's been really good as well, but they're not going to be any starters from this lineup in the All-Star mix.
Not a whole lot of middle relievers or setup men get that call either, with Phil Maton possibly being listed with that. It's Colin Ray today for the Cardinals. I was told I was saying it wrong. Is it Jameson Tyion?
Tyion, yes.
Yeah, I was. Schaefer was giving me shit yesterday for how I was saying his name.
It looks like two L's, but it's Tails. It's Tyion.
Yeah. And then Matthew Boyd on Sunday.
And Matthew Boyd has been a find. I tell you what, I mean, he's been so good for them this year. And Boyd is a guy that when he was with the Tigers, he was looked like he could be like a strong number 2, number 3 starter in the majors. And he went through some ups and downs, man. He got hurt. Like he kind of revitalized himself a little bit when he went into a relief role with the Mariners. I remember he was part of that Mariners team that made that first playoff push to break the drought. And I remember talking to him in Kansas City, I think in August or September that year, and he was just having so much fun being part of it. He's a guy from Washington, and you could just kind of see his joy for the game was. I don't want to say he lost it, but I mean he went through some rough stretches, and yeah, he's been a find. And when we talk about in the off season, like doing things and taking flyers, Matthew Boyd is is an example of why you take a flyer on a guy who maybe had been hurt. Had something to prove. And I don't think anybody would have expected that Boyd would be what he's been. I mean, he's got a 2.65 ERA in 17 games. His FIP, his fielding independent pitching, is really good too at 3.47, and he's been fantastic. And I think with some of the injuries that they've had in that rotation, he's as big of a reason the Cubs are in the position that they are right now as anyone in that lineup, in that clubhouse.
The looking at some of the other stuff, I want to get into Michaelis and just their overall rotation for this team in just a bit. But as I look ahead at some of the weather for today's game in this matchup, 78 degrees. I'm sorry, not 78 degrees. 84 degrees is what they're calling for at game time. Wind not blowing out today. Wind blowing from first to third in the game today, but in Chicago that could change at any time. I bring that up though because if you are looking at DraftKings and even that DraftKings Pick 6 app, maybe since it is a Friday afternoon game in Chicago, maybe there will be some bombs bursting in air and some home runs finding their way out of the ballpark with Miles Michaelis and Colin Ray on the mound for the matchup. And I would say go offense heavy on some of those DraftKings Pick 6 apps, some of those Pick 6 choices for today, whether it's home runs, doubles, runs scored, whatever it is that you find attractive in those numbers today. Because you can get on that DraftKings Pick 6 app now. Use code STL Sports. That's code STL Sports for new customers. Play $5. Get $50 in Pick 6 credits. Better payouts, bigger wins. Only with Pick 6 from DraftKings. The crown is yours.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
And Ryan, people now in the chat as we move over talking about the pitching for today. Miles Michaelis on the mound. Eric Fetty, national TV game for him on Sunday, getting that 5:00 start at Wrigley on ESPN. For these two, I think as you look at where we are in the schedule, knowing that there is a week off, knowing that we get to hit that reset button at the All-Star break, I really think that the Cardinals have to be looking at how you get Michael McGrevy in this rotation for that second half of the season. And it's almost like a showcase, a tryout of sorts with guys like Michaelis and with Fetty to kind of figure out, okay, whose spot is he going to take? I think Fetty right now is that front runner for who is going to be losing his possible spot.
I mean, at the moment, look, I know his last 2 starts have been ugly. You look at those game logs and you see the 7 earned runs in back-to-back games. But I mean, he was pretty good before that. In the 8 starts before that, I mean, look at his numbers on Baseball Reference. In the 8 starts before that, he had a 2.53 ERA. I mean, he was pretty solid. He was a guy that, he had the one great game against the complete game shutout against the Nationals, right? You start with that game and go with the next 8 games. It was a 2.53 ERA. He was giving you 5 innings, pitching into the 6th inning. I mean, that's not great stuff, but in 2025, I mean, that's what you're looking for, right? And there are a lot of contenders that would say, can we pick up a number 5 starter who's going to give us 5 innings pretty much every time out? And I wouldn't, I'm not going to say he's going to go out there and throw 7 shutout against the Cubs in that environment. But I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if he has a bounce back start and kind of reasserts his position in that rotation. And I mean, I think I agree with you that at some point they do need to get McGrevy in there. They need to see what he can do on a regular basis, not just coming up for spot starts or coming out of the bullpen or whatever kind of the role he's played this year. And you'd like to see in August and September what he can do on a consistent basis. And at some point, I think they probably imagined that attrition was going to happen and someone was going to get injured and a spot in the rotation was open. And it hasn't happened. And I think that's part of the reason that the Cardinals are in the position they have been. But at some point, you have to make a decision. How are we going to get this guy who is part of our future into the equation in 2025? And it's probably going to be, barring an injury, it's going to be Fetty or Michaelis. I still think if I had to guess who is, assuming they don't trade either one, not that they would get much for Michaelis or Fetty, but assuming they don't trade either one, I think Fetty is still, in my mind, he's the guy that's in the rotation the rest of the year if he's not moved.
Yeah, and I think as you do want to see McGrevy in there before the trade deadline because, like I keep saying, putting McGrevy in the rotation is going to be like making a trade. Like that's your big acquisition, your deadline acquisition. You need to give him those regular starts. And they've been trying. They have found a way to manipulate the system to get him the starts the way they have. You still want to see it on a consistent basis to where he's on the roster, he's in the clubhouse, he is living that MLB life instead of just the Memphis shuttle up here to get a start every now and then.
You want him, this sounds stupid, but you want McGrevy to be in the same location as Sonny Gray.
That's exactly like be in that clubhouse, be in, be around the catchers and, be there with them, work on your off, your off days, your off day throwing days. You're working with Dusty Blake and not whoever's down in Memphis. You are working with the organization that you're going to be with for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I mean, Derek Gould of the Post wrote something in his newsletter today, the right fielder, talking about like guys adding new pitches. And one of the things that kind of stuck out to me was Palante adding kind of a sweeper, right? And one of the things that Derek wrote about was kind of how Gray was part of that, right? He was in those sessions watching Palante and, John King added the curveball and kind of like adding his input, right? I think that's something that when we talk about opening up a spot, it's not just so McGrevy can get the consistency and knowing where he's going to be, but it's being around the guys that have had success. And for as much as you can learn in the minor leagues, I've talked to a lot of guys who've come up in their first couple of years, and they will tell you that the difference between what they're being told in the minor leagues and what they are seeing in the major leagues is a big deal. And if you can get McGrevy around a guy like Sonny Gray on a daily basis for months at a time, I think that would be as big of a benefit to the organization as a whole as him taking the mound every fifth day.
By the way, I'm seeing this now on John Denton's Twitter account. Jameson Tyion, who the Cardinals hit a few weeks ago quite well, he was actually placed on the injured list earlier today. So even though MLB still has him listed as a starter tomorrow,
I was gonna say I had him listed. Yeah,
the Cubs have recalled Jordan Wicks. So I don't know if that's a bullpen game tomorrow or if it is Jordan Wicks that gets to start tomorrow, who did start against the Cardinals last year, pitched against the Cardinals last year at one time when he was called up on the Cubs. So there's a little bit of news for you, and kind of makes today's game, if you're unsure of it, if you're going with a AAA starter or a bullpen start tomorrow, kind of makes today's game even that much more important to get off on the right foot and have the ability, looking ahead, be like, okay, we could take these first two. You have Liberatore going tomorrow against an unknown, and you take today's game. That puts a lot less pressure on you against Matthew Boyd on Sunday.
Yeah, when you're looking at it as a series, and again, it's a 162 game schedule, but I think even the players and the managers and the coaches will tell you that they look at it as these little segments, right? Because if you look at the whole season, it's overwhelming. But if you break it down into segments and games and series and all these different things, Sonny Gray's not pitching for the Cardinals, right? So they've got this important series, and the Cardinals' best pitcher is not going against the team that they have to, just because the way things line up. So yeah, it becomes key when you look at game two and you think, okay, well, with Liberatore going, the Cardinals are going to have the starting pitching advantage in that game, and you feel like you have a good chance of winning that one. Yeah, so if you feel like you can pick up that first game with Michaelis, and Michaelis has been what he has been over the last couple of months, which is not what he was for that long stretch of good starts against a guy in Ray who's hittable. You can get to him, right? It would be a big deal, especially when you look at the like we talked about Matt Boyd, the Cubs' best pitching story of the year going in that Sunday game. Yeah, I think it would be huge.
There's your lineup again. If you're watching on YouTube, you see it on the screen for what the Cardinals are going with today. Donovan, Wynn, Burleson, Contreras, Nootbaar, Arenado, Gorman, Pages, and Scott. That is your lineup today for the Cardinals. For the Cubs, they are going with Ian Happ in left, Kyle Tucker in right, Seiya Suzuki DHing, Pete Crow Armstrong in center. The Dansby Swanson is at short, Michael Busch at first, Carson Kelly behind the plate, Nico Horner at second. Is it Matt Shaw? Matt Shaw, their third baseman. So I only had last names for the Cubs, and I was really worried about I think a few of them that I was going to get the first name wrong on that. But hey, good news. Carson Kelly is starting at Wrigley today, not at Busch. So that is that he is not going to perform well today since he's on the at home instead of on the road. Have you seen those splits on Carson Kelly this year?
No, is he that much better on the road?
Oh, I'm going to bring him up right now. We talked about it. We had it in our storylines for last week when they were playing each other at home this year. Let's see, home and away. On the road, Carson Kelly, and both of so 29 or 25 starts at home, 24 starts on the road. So that is very even splits there. He is hitting 341 on the road with an OPS of 1012. At Wrigley this year, he's hitting 186 with an OPS of 683.
Yeah, I'm looking at that
now. And one of the most hitter-friendly ballparks in all of baseball. He is that much of a discrepancy.
I believe that's what they call a reverse split.
Yeah.
Not the way things are supposed to be.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It is. So that's your lineup for today for the Cubs. In conclusion, Ryan, how many hot dogs you eating today?
Oh, I hadn't even thought about that. Probably a couple. We'll see. I'm trying to be better, man. I made the decision that July was going to be better. I was going to eat better and work out more and all those good things. So 4 days in, I've been good. I think one hot dog won't kill anything though.
I'm looking out. Joey Chestnut, I think, is getting ready to eat his hot dogs, or he's doing it as of now. His goal is 80 hot dogs today.
He will beat me by like 79 on the day.
Miko Sudo, by the way, in the female portion of the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, she won earlier today. She ate 33 hot dogs to capture her 11th title at the Nathan's hot dog eating contest.
That's 33 just still seems insane.
33 in 10 minutes. Yeah.
That's crazy. I can't imagine. I cannot imagine.
Well, I'm on the post-game show today with Stephen Carey. That comes your way around that'll come your way around 4 o'clock or so this afternoon. So we'll update the hot dog numbers then and let you know how we're doing on this afternoon. But until then, enjoy the game if you're able to watch it, because it's an Apple TV game. Because why would you put the best rivalry in baseball on an app that not everybody has on a holiday Friday afternoon? Because that makes perfect sense, Rob Manfred. Jesus Christ.
Because Apple wants it and Apple paid money for it. And I think we've seen with the blackouts over the last, forever, that takes precedence. We'll see. I'm hopeful that will change.
Put every game on the 4th of July on free TV and let everybody watch it and promote your damn stars. It makes absolutely no sense to put this game on Apple TV. God, that's 2 Fridays in a row too for the Cardinals.
I noticed that,
yeah.
I still get the email every week from Apple talking about which games are on there, and I was like, oh, it's a couple in a row now for the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's But I because it was 2 Fridays in a row, I bit the bullet, and I do have Apple TV right now. It'll be getting canceled after the game today, but that is that's how I'm operating for these right now. So enjoy it if you can watch it. If not, listen to Claves, to John, to Ricky on KMOX, and tune into us after the game is over. Stephen Carey and I will be bringing you the post-game show for the Cubs and Cardinals today at Wrigley Field. First pitch here in about an hour and a half from now. He's Ryan Fagan. I'm Joe Roderick. Talk to you next time right here on STL Sports Central. All content brought to you by DraftKings. The crown is yours.